Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Storytime. As you can tell by the title, today's episode focuses on stories from the nighttime. I figured a lot of you like to listen to the stories at night, so this is a perfect way to relax after a long day. Today's stories feature encounters in large towns, home alone, and even on some road trips. What other things will we experience today? Listen in and find out. And remember, if you haven't turned the notifications on, make sure to do that. That way you never miss another episode of Storytime. And of course, make sure to check out my social media for some extra goodies. But with that, let's get started, and I'll see all of you a little bit later on. Number 1. Back in 2004, when I was 16 years old, I was living in Alberta, Canada. The town I lived in was pretty small, with a population of about 5,000 people. From what I remember, it was a fairly quiet and simple lifestyle there. If you weren't at school or at work, then chances are you were at home just watching TV or reading a book. So I'll go ahead and describe where I lived. My house was located towards the top of a large field, with a series of dense woods surrounding us. We did have a street in front of our house, however, so although uncommon, we would occasionally have people drive through. On the busiest day, you might expect to see or hear about 3 cars, with at least one of them being the neighbors. Speaking of our neighbors, the nearest one was at least a quarter-mile away from us, and in order to get to them, you had to take this old road with barely any light. Seriously, if you're driving out there late at night, it's really hard to see. Anyways, growing up, I wasn't really a huge fan of how lonesome our home was, but I obviously got used to it. So in order to best tell this story, I need to give you a basic outline of our home. This was a 2-story home, with a garage right next to it. Downstairs you obviously had the kitchen, the living room, and even a guest bedroom. And right next to the kitchen you had 2 doors. One leads you to the garage, and the other one leads you to the backyard. When you walk through the front door, you are welcomed in with the living room, and then the set of stairs in the corner. Upstairs is where we had 2 more bedrooms and my room, which overlooks the front yard. With that said, let's get on to this experience. It was December, and I remember there being a series of break-ins that had been happening over the past month or so. For some reason, they would always happen during the daytime when nobody was around, and it seemed that whoever was responsible hadn't been caught yet. This, of course, made me nervous any time I was home alone. But since most of these break-ins happened in towns hundreds of miles away from us, I never really paid too much attention to it. Well, late one night, I remember being asleep after a long day at school. This is when I recall waking up to a noise down below. Of course, of all times, no one was home. My mom and dad were staying with my grandma taking care of her that evening, and I of course stayed home by myself. Seriously, why is it that when something happens, it's always when you're by yourself? Whatever. I sat there in my bed listening in, and I soon realized that all was quiet. I was accepting that I just awoke from a bad dream and that was it. Okay, well I figured since I was awake, I could go get some milk from the refrigerator, then I could return back to bed. So I start making my way down the stairs, and as I do so, I'm once again hearing noises. It sounded like scratching, like someone or something was scratching at one of the windows. I should mention it was around 1 a.m., and at least 20 degrees outside. I once again listened in at the bottom of the steps, only to hear silence. That confirmed I wasn't just dreaming, but perhaps there just was a small animal making its way around the house. No need to worry, right? So I walk on over to the kitchen and I pour myself some milk. As I turned around from putting the milk back, I noticed the back porch light suddenly come on. At that very moment, a sudden sight of a shadow has me frozen still. Honestly, it looked like a person just walked by the window, and that was the reason behind why the light went on. Still, I tried my best to rationalize everything, so I make my way over to the window. The thing is, I don't see anything. Yet again, I'm trying to calm myself down, just telling myself I was tired. Suddenly, I can hear what sounds like the garage door being opened. Remember how I described the garage door being next to the kitchen? Yes, so if anyone wants to open the main garage door, you would be able to hear it from the kitchen. I start getting nervous and sweat because as far as I knew, no normal wolf or maybe a bear could just open it like that, correct? Well, about that. Either way, this was when I go running up to my room and immediately I closed and locked the door. Once inside, I called my parents and I was letting them know what was happening. Dad, you guys need to get over here right now. Honey, what's wrong? It's 1 in the morning. There's noises in the garage, and it sounds like somebody's throwing things around. Okay, don't worry. I'm on my way as fast as I can. Stay put, and don't open the door, no matter what. Naturally, you would expect to call officers in this situation, but I chose to call my dad first. By the way, I did call them. They end up arriving about 10 minutes before my dad, and while I was on the line with a dispatcher, she explained to me everything that was happening. In summary, it appeared that my dad had not properly closed the garage door when he left, because inside the garage, they found a bear seemingly making its way around the garage, tossing things around, I'm guessing trying to find food. After a bit of time, they were able to get him out of there and all returned normal. Well, at least not my sleeping schedule. As an update, the people that have been breaking into the homes have actually been caught. They were trying to get into my neighbor's home just a week after the bear. Something tells me they were working together, but I'm just joking. Number 2. This happened about 7 years ago, when me and my best friend went on one of those guided tours in Europe. See, for the longest time, me and my best friend, who we will call Victoria in this story, had been saving up money to go on vacation in Europe. Though we wanted to go, we weren't exactly sure where to visit exactly. Since we were both in university at the time, Victoria saw a flyer for a guided trip that takes you to famous landmarks and towns. It was a 2-week-long adventure where you would stay in a different place every other day. This would give you the perfect opportunity to learn of the history of the location. Then on the second day, you were able to go and explore and do what you wanted. This would be perfect for us. So at the end of the semester in May, we pack our things and we start our 2-week-long adventure. Being the brave and adventurous college students we were excited to join this group of people and go explore Europe. Our first stop was Greece, and wow, let me tell you, we had no idea that our adventure would start off with quite the encounter. Just like I mentioned, on the first day in Greece, we spent time visiting different landmarks, and even spent some time by the ocean. It was lovely, and so far, nothing seemed too out of the ordinary. Of course, since we did end up doing some shopping as a group together, you can just imagine all the shops we ended up going to visit, and of course we even bought a few little souvenirs for family and friends. After a long day, the entire group ended up meeting up at this wonderful restaurant that sat alongside the ocean. Here we would enjoy the wonderful seafood and various cuisines they had to offer. As me and Victoria ate dinner and spoke with our new friends, we became aware of this gentleman who sat by himself at a table. For some reason he seemed out of place, like he didn't match the location. He will come into play a little bit later in the story. So after dinner, everybody was free to do what they wanted to. Most of the group chose to return back to the hotel, while me and my friend Victoria felt it was a great idea to do some last-minute shopping. Yes, even though we had done some shopping in the morning, we were sort of in a rush since we needed to get to our destinations. I did mention that we would spend 2 days in each location, but here we would only be staying 1 day, I'm guessing in order to keep with the schedule. So me and Victoria head into town, unknowing that the entire time someone would be following us. So using our memory from the daytime, me and Victoria make our way back into the small town, and it featured various different shops. Mind you, by this point it's around 9 p.m. on a Friday, so although it was nighttime, we figured it wasn't too late. As you might have expected, the town was full of people and music. I guess that night we had chosen to go out, there was a music festival going on. I still remember all the lights and the sounds of people dancing and singing, the perfect cover for somebody sneaking around. Well, with the fun and festivities going on, we make our way to this jewelry shop that featured some handmade bracelets and necklaces. I ended up buying a few of them for my mom and my sisters. Then we moved on to a clothing store, just a couple of streets down. As we're shopping, I happened to take a look towards the corner of the store, and that's where I saw a familiar face. Remember that man from the restaurant? Well, I saw him standing there, seemingly just looking at me and my friend. It's funny, because he tried his best to act like he was shopping too, because as soon as I looked toward him, he breaks eye contact and picks up a magazine to read. I forgot to describe him, but he looked to be about, I'd say, 35 years old, with dirty long hair and matching old clothing. Still, it was possible that he so happened to be shopping like us, so I don't mention it to Victoria as not to ruin our night. That would soon change, because as soon as me and Victoria are about to leave, he walks up to us and starts talking. He actually spoke decent English, and he said he was from the area. He goes on to tell us how he loved to show people around town, and even offered to buy us all the things we wanted. Sure, it was nice, but if he thought we were that naive, he was wrong. Me and Victoria thanked him for the offer, but told him we were busy, so we walk away. This is when things were about to get worse. By this point in the night, it was nearing 11 p.m., and we still had a fair amount of a walk to get to the hotel. We were actually able to see it in the distance, but we realized we still had about a 20-minute walk back. As we left the downtown area, the streets soon became empty, and the street lamps you saw lighting the streets soon became distant. Now we were walking in an area that was pretty lonesome. I'd say about 10 minutes of walking down this one lonely street, we both happened to hear something fall over behind us. We take a look behind, and we notice a trash can fallen over, and from there, we're also able to see somebody running behind a building. We stood there looking for, I want to say, 10 seconds, and now we could see somebody peek from behind it. This is when we started to get somewhat worried, and we started walking faster, choosing to go down an alleyway. Yes, not the smartest idea, but we remember using it in the morning as a shortcut. Now we are walking in this alley, and we are both hearing footsteps. They're seemingly catching up to us. There he was, the guy from earlier. He now calls out to us and says, "Now, where do you think the two of you are going? You didn't think I was done talking, did you?" While talking, he had this strange smile on his face, one that definitely showed us he was up to no good. We now take off running, where we so happen to see a couple of security guards walking around with their dog. The man literally puts the brakes on, and he proceeds to run back down the alleyway. I'm pretty sure the dog sensed what was happening, because he ends up going after the stranger, leaving me and my friend explaining what had happened. It's safe to say, had it not been for the security guards and their wonderful dog, things might have turned out worse. Number 3. Sure, looking back on this, I should have been a little more aware of my surroundings, but if it's a lesson I learned, it's this. Don't listen to music when you're walking alone at night. Fair enough. Allow me to retell this story to all of you. I was in high school at the time, and I grew up in Anchorage. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood where oftentimes at night, the only thing you would hear would be the occasional sounds of moose. During my time living there, I never had any bad experiences or encounters, until one evening that ended up changing everything. I was 17 years old at the time, and the high school I was attending was about a 30-minute bus drive away from me. Every morning I would wake up at around 5, then I would take the bus about an hour later. Though I was in high school, this story revolves around the time I was attending an early college entry program in my senior year. At the time, my goal was to get a few college credits, so as I mentioned, I was attending some courses at the local community college. It was about 20 minutes away from my high school. I was in a writing workshop that was on Tuesdays and Fridays, so after school ended at 3 p.m., I would go to the college campus until I got out at around 8. Sure, it was long hours, but it was well worth it, I'll tell you. On this particular night, it was a Friday evening at my writing workshop, and I ended up leaving at around 8:30. I stayed a little bit longer to talk to my professor, but I soon left after. As I stepped outside, I was welcomed in with the snow just starting to fall on the ground, and even the cool evening breeze just starting. As per usual, I head to the far end of the campus where I wait for the bus to arrive. I remember really being into classical music, so I had my iPod in, listening to my favorite songs. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the bus arrives, and we head off to the bus station. From the bus station, it's another 15-minute walk home. We make the usual stops, and on the second to last stop, a couple of older gentlemen get on the bus. Of course, of all spots, one of them chose to be right next to me. As a side note, it was just me on the bus along with another student that sat in the front. Why he chose to be right next to me, I wasn't too sure. Still, Still, with only about 5 minutes until we reached the bus station, I figured I didn't mind him. Those were the longest 5 minutes of my life. Again, I had my music in, so I didn't hear him at first, until he waves at me with a smile. Okay, well, I guess he didn't get the message I was listening to music. The conversation was fairly simple. He wanted to know what sort of music I was listening to. I told him I was listening to classical music, and soon left it at that. He, on the other hand, thought this was an invitation to continue talking to me, so he started to want to know things, like my name, what school I went to, stuff like that. A bit annoyed, I gave him a random name and I told him I was attending college. That seemed to answer his questions, as he took out his phone and started typing things in. Not sure if he was typing the information I gave him, but I did my best to try to ignore him. We finally stopped at the bus station and I waste zero time to leave. As I'm about to leave, however, he ends up saying, "Wait, hold on for me. This is my stop too." Okay, so why did you need to tell me this, I thought to myself. Hey there, I figured since this is the same stop, we can walk together. So, what do you say? I told him my dad was around the corner and was picking me up that night, and that was when he finally seemed to lose interest. It looked like it worked, because as he ended up walking down an alleyway, I continued my walk home, albeit a little bit nervous. To calm myself down, I turn the music I was listening to up more, and I walk as quickly as I can. As I'm approaching a street, I happen to notice the same man walking out of the alleyway he just entered. Ignoring him, I proceed across the street, and now I head on over to the other side. Pretty soon, I became aware of some headlights approaching me. I found it weird until I started hearing somebody yelling at me. I take my earphones out, and that's when two things happen. For starters, I turn around and now I'm face to face with the stranger from earlier. He just ends up running down the street and disappearing into the night. The woman from the car stops and she tells me, "I'm so glad I got your attention. I noticed he'd been following you, so that's why I yelled at him to leave you alone. You are very lucky." I guess in me not paying attention, I hadn't noticed he was following me. I thank her for her help, and she drives alongside me until I make it home. I never did see that stranger after that, and as far as I knew, he wasn't even from there. Number 4. This just happened the other night, and I'm not exactly sure what to think about it. So, to start off, I work at the mall at a small jewelry shop that my friend Sarah owned. I usually worked in the mornings Tuesdays through Friday, but on this evening, I ended up working on a random Saturday. My coworker got sick, so my boss Sarah wanted to know if I could cover for her. I figured it was fine since I had nothing else going on that day. Besides, I could use the extra money. On this evening, I ended up working from 3 p.m. all the way until the mall closed at around 9 p.m. As a quick little side note, this town I lived in was pretty small, so it was funny to see that there was barely any people this night. It was honestly looking to be a pretty easy afternoon. While working, I would take the opportunity to study and tend to the customers, but like I mentioned, it was pretty quiet. At around, I want to say 7 p.m., this man who I'd say was in his 50s shows up, and he started looking around the small store. The entire time, he never said a word. He just stood there looking at the jewelry. Eventually, he leaves when the security guard shows up, who I happen to be good friends with. We were always good friends, and we talked for hours. Just don't forget about the man who showed up. Finally, it's around 9 p.m. and I'm closing the store. My security guard friend shows up and we head to the cafeteria to get some food. That's before the mall officially closes. By the time we finished talking and eating, it was nearing 10 p.m. It was now time to head on home. My buddy worked until 6 a.m., so I knew he had quite the night ahead of him. He offered to walk me to my car, but I told him I would be okay. I just really wish I would have walked with him. So I take the back exit of the mall that was essentially this dark and lonely alleyway. That's when I became aware of somebody standing underneath a light. The lights back here weren't exactly the best, and with it raining, it didn't help with the visibility. Out of nowhere, this person starts yelling at me, saying things like why I ignored him and how come I didn't want to be friends with him. Confused about it, I watch as he steps out of the dark corner, and instantly, I recognized him. He was the man from the shop who showed up a couple of hours earlier. But what's funny is, I've never seen him before. This was when I started walking to the front of the alley, and now he says, "Wait, where are you going? I was wondering, do you have any plans tonight?" I again ignore him as he seems to be getting desperate. I was now becoming a bit concerned since there had been recent stories of people having their things taken from them. I figured since I worked at a jewelry store, he must have thought I had money on me. As I'm running toward the front of the mall, I can see my buddy outside talking on his radio. I wave toward him and I get his attention, where I tell him what just happened to me. Quickly, he heads on over to the alley where all he sees was the back door to the mall open. He ended up describing to me what happened next. As he heads inside, he starts hearing an alarm going off, and soon he is able to see the stranger hiding behind some plants. Eventually, he explained that he was going to wait until the mall closed, and once all the lights were off, he was going to make his way into the jewelry store. Obviously, it seemed his plan didn't work out, and I never did see him again after that. Number 5. This ended up happening one late night when returning from a friend's house. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, but my friend lived about an hour away from me. I was visiting her because she had recently moved and she was having a housewarming party. By the time I left her house, it was now close to 1 in the morning. It had just finished raining too. I remember leaving her home excited to get back home because I had just bought a new mattress and I couldn't wait to enjoy it. Along with the extra cake she made, I also had my 2-year-old German Shepherd named Todd. The reason I brought him along with me was for 1, to keep me company, and 2, because my friend really liked him. She was actually the one who helped me get Todd, so I thought it was a great way for her to see him again. Now, in order to get home, I had a few options. There were various different roads I could take to get home that pretty much led me to the same place. Option number 1 was to get on the freeway and take it all the way home. Option number 2 was to take a series of back roads that head off into the small town. In this instance, I decided not to use the freeway because I wanted to go visit this town. You see, there was this little convenience store that was famous for their hot chocolate, and I really was in the mood for some. Besides, I had some cake too. Seriously, there would often be times me and my friend would make the 45-minute drive just to get some. Anytime we did, we would always make it an adventure. So I ended up driving to this town and getting myself some hot chocolate, as well as a few other snacks. I figured I was already here, so why not? Something else that I liked to do was to visit this little park that was about 10 minutes outside of this town. It featured a couple of benches and even a lake that people often would spend time at. I figured since it was so late at night, I wouldn't have to deal with anyone being out there. Well, as it so happens, I was wrong. Me and Todd made the 10-minute drive over, and once we parked, we proceeded to head to this park. We sat at a familiar bench, just enjoying the quiet evening and listening to the sounds of nature. I want to say about 15 minutes of being here, Todd started acting funny. It's almost like he became aware of something or someone and was now staring off into the nearby woods. I did find it strange, but not until he started growling. I soon became aware of an older-looking Honda making its way through the nearby trail, and it parked just on the other side of the lake. As a side note, from where I sat, it was hard to see where I was, considering there was barely any light here. Soon that person was joined by another car, then another, and then another. I now watched as they just sat there with their lights off. All the while, Todd was growling, then he proceeded to bark. This was when all of a sudden, the lights on their vehicles suddenly came on, and now they were facing me. This was when I figured something was up, because they started making their way around the lake and heading towards us. I knew something was wrong, so I quickly rushed Todd inside the car, and we waste zero time leaving. As we're making our way down this dirt road, I can see the vehicles in my rearview mirror. They're approaching us, and it even got to the point where they bumped into us a couple of times. You can just imagine how I was feeling in that moment, not knowing exactly what in the world they wanted and why they were doing this. As this was going on, Todd is just barking at the back of the car, trying, I guess, to get them to leave. Finally, as I can see the town in front of me, they make one final attempt to get me to stop, but seemingly, they just turn back around and leave. When all was said and done, there was a big bump at the back of the car, and I did have to get it fixed later on. In the end, I don't know exactly what caused them to do this, but something tells me they were up to no good, and when they saw me, they wanted me out of their sight. Number 6. This happened about 3 years ago. Now, some background information. I'm 19 years old, and I pretty much live in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee. I do have a cat who keeps me company, but that's pretty much it. This was supposed to be your average ordinary day. See, I work at a grocery store my aunt owns, where I end up closing on most nights. This happened to be one of those nights. It was a Tuesday evening, and by the time I left the shop, it was around 10 p.m. I remember listening to the radio like normal, when suddenly a message comes on. Turns out that somebody was on the run, and they were being looked for in the area. Anyone with information was said to call the local station, and so on and so forth. It was pretty interesting, but I soon forgot about it once the music came on. It's about a 20-minute drive to my home, so after stopping to fill my car, I arrive home close to 10:30 p.m. Once inside, I relax and turn the television on, where soon my pet cat joined me. This was actually something we did on a nightly basis, and I think she looked forward to when I got home. I want to say that around midnight, my cat ended up getting off the couch and started meowing and scratching at the door. I mean, I did find it weird because if she had to do her business, she wouldn't want to go outside. I looked over to her, but I ignored her, preferring to listen to the television. That was when I suddenly heard something fall over outside. It instantly got my attention, because I thought perhaps she had gotten outside or something. I ended up taking a look around the room, but I noticed she was underneath one of the tables asleep. It was now obvious. It wasn't my cat making the noise, because I'm able to hear footsteps just outside my door. As that is going on, I'm able to hear what sounds like a helicopter approaching, and even the sounds of sirens. That was when I heard the running disappear and a car engine start. As I got the courage to look out the window, I can see a car driving off into the distance, heading down the dirt road that leads away from my property. From there, I can see the red and blue lights making their way down the road, following the car that just left moments ago. My best guess was that this was the person they'd been looking for. Obviously, I was confused, and I was a bit nervous about the entire thing, but I told myself it appeared the person was now gone. You can imagine I didn't get much sleep that night, and in the morning, I ended up checking out my property. As it so happened, there appeared to be a crowbar next to the back door, with the obvious signs of a mark on the door. It seemed that whoever this person was trying to open it. Then they ended up running when they heard all the commotion. After it happened, I ended up staying over at my mom's house for a few nights, where eventually I heard the person had been found a couple of towns over. I think looking back now, it's safe to say that I won't be seeing him anytime soon, and I guess that's a good thing. Number 7. To start my story, I'm 22 years old, and I'm living in Portland, Oregon. This started happening a few weeks ago, and I still don't know what to think of it. Also, I should explain that this may not be like the other stories, but what really gets to me was that it remained unexplained. I will, however, explain some things. I recently moved into this apartment structure about a month ago after moving out from living with my parents. I normally am out pretty late at night, considering I just started working at a 24-hour convenience store. The store was about a 15-minute walk from my apartment, so oftentimes than not, I would be walking around late at night. I worked Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 6 p.m. to 2 in the morning. It's a weird schedule, I know, but I was a night owl anyways, so I didn't really mind it too much. Over the course of a week, I started noticing this van parked right outside our apartment complex. It never appeared during the daytime or even when I left for work, but it was always parked there in the same spot. Something else about it was there was always this person standing outside of the car. They were usually on their phone, appearing to take pictures of the building. There was even one time I even tried saying hello, but he just ended up ignoring me. What was even more weird was that over time, I started to notice he would be walking around the apartment complex. One time while walking at night, I could see from the distance what appeared to be him trying to open some of the doors to the building. After moving the locks of the doors enough times, he seems to stop what he was doing, and now he goes back to his van. Thing is, he wouldn't leave. On the occasion this happened, I ended up calling in about it, but I guess he must have seen me because he ended up driving away. I explained everything that happened, but nobody was found matching the description. Looking back, I don't know exactly who he was and if he had anything planned, but I guess I'll never know. As an update, I haven't seen the van recently, so I'm guessing he went somewhere else. Let's just hope he's not trying to get into your place next. Number 8. I was recently returning from a road trip in which I went to go visit my family during spring break. I'd chosen to visit them instead of going with my friends to the beach because up until that point, I hadn't seen my family in almost 2 years. They lived out in Montana, and I was studying in Southern California. You can imagine I had quite the drive back home. I want to say I was somewhere near Baker, California, when I needed to stop to fill up my car. I was still about 2 hours away from my dorm, but I thought this would be a great spot for me to get a break and even get something to eat. At this point in the evening, it was around, I'd say, 2 in the morning, so you can imagine it was pretty empty. I'll admit, I almost considered stopping somewhere else, but I knew my car wasn't going to last much longer. This rest stop, so to speak, featured a small convenience store that also had a small coffee shop next to it. First thing I do was I go inside to pay the cashier to fill up my car, then I go ahead and do so. As I'm doing this, I became aware of another vehicle making its way into this parking area, and of all places, they chose to park right behind my car. I mean, there were other spots they could have gone to, but whatever. From what I could see, I saw 2 people who sat in the front, but due to the darkened windows, it was hard to tell. So I thought to myself that at any moment I was expecting somebody to step outside, but they never do. A bit surprised, I go ahead and step inside the store to get a cup of coffee. While doing so, I head on over to one of the aisles and go get myself some donuts. Suddenly, I hear the little noise the door makes when somebody enters, and I can see as 2 people walked in. He was followed by somebody else. Of course, I didn't pay too much attention to them, because now I decided what kind of donuts I wanted. Do I want the jelly kind, or do I want the plain ones? Decisions. As I'm making up my mind, I'm able to hear whispering on the other side of the aisle. I couldn't exactly hear what they were saying, but I did hear a couple of words that stood out to me. A series of phrases saying, "Wait, not yet," and "Let's wait until we're outside away from the cameras." A bit alarmed by those phrases, I now take the opportunity to pay for my things and tell the cashier what I heard. He takes what I said seriously, and soon he's on the phone. Actually, he wastes no time doing it, which I guess I was somewhat happy about. As soon as he said the word officer, the 2 from the other aisle quickly run out the door, and they head back to their van. I guess I was right in assuming it belonged to those 2. Me and the cashier both watched as they drove away into the night and soon were out of our sight. About 10 minutes later, officers did arrive and they thanked us. I was confused as to why, but then they ended up explaining to me. They had been looking for 2 that had been seemingly following people around on the highways and even getting into their cars. Sadly though, the security cameras weren't working that night, so there was no way of telling if it was them. Something tells me they were the ones, but since I never heard anything about it afterward, I can't be too sure. Number 9. This took place towards the end of 2017, when I was walking my dog Jane, a golden retriever. Normally I walk with Jane in the early mornings before work, and even after work, at around 8 p.m. On the night this took place, it was one of these late evenings, at around 9 p.m. The sunlight was obviously gone, and the woods were filled with the sounds of crickets and branches moving around in the wind. This path is actually used by people on bicycles during the daytime, but in the evening, a lot of people like to come here to walk their dogs, or even just to get some fresh air. Now, you're probably wondering why in the world I was out here in the woods. Well, allow me to explain that to you, my friend. My neighborhood consisted of a long road that leads you into town. You had the houses on one side, then on the other side was a large field with a lake. Right behind the lake was a set of woods that featured these trails. This is where I was. I started at the lake, then make a loop around going through the woods, and I arrived back where I started. Not really good with descriptions, so I hope that somewhat helps. With that, on to the encounter. So, as me and my dog are walking, we are arriving to the wooded area. This part was about half a mile, with a couple of street lamps to help guide your way. You still had to bring a source of light regardless, since it was hard to see. Now, as we're entering the woods, I become aware of what looks to be movement up ahead of me. Jane was actually the first one to notice this, because she lets out a low-sounding growl and stands right in front of me, almost as if warning me about something. I should let you all know that she was the friendliest dog I've ever known. This was the first time I'd ever seen her act this way, so you couldn't blame me when I acted surprised by it. I am now able to see as somebody steps out slowly from the tree line and they're making their way over to me. The thing that I found really odd was he never once said anything until he was literally a couple of feet away from me. I had to hold Jane back because I felt that at any moment she was going to jump. I don't know how I kept her back, to be honest, but just then I seemed to lose grip of the leash as she bumps into him, causing him to fall over. What I see next is what has me and Jane running back the way we had arrived. I watched as some sort of sharp tool fell out of his jacket pocket and fell down into the river next to us. With it shining in the moonlight in the water, I didn't even want to begin to imagine what it was. Me and Jane take off running back down the trail, and when I turn around, I was no longer able to see him. I want to say that was the end of it, but it wasn't. Looking back, I should have said something, but I never did. About a week later, somebody was jogging at night when they happened to run into the same person. Unfortunately for them, he took his iPod and his wallet, and soon he disappeared. Now, if there is a happy ending to this, it's this. Somebody actually saw somebody who matched the same description, and after all was said and done, they were able to connect them with the other instances. It's nice to know he's no longer out there, and it's nice that Jane was with me on that night, because you never know. Number 10. I've only told this story a few times to a couple of friends, and of course, as you might expect, my friends laugh at me for letting something like this get to me. I'll tell you, unless you were in my shoes, you wouldn't be laughing about it. Here's what takes place. I was visiting family who lived out in the countryside in Alaska, where the nearest town was, at least I want to say, an hour away. My family always enjoyed being able to be out on their own, which explains why my uncle built a home out near the mountains. I really couldn't blame him, to be honest, since he happened to build his home right next to a large and beautiful lake. I ended up visiting him in the summertime, so being up and about at night was perfect. The sunlight wouldn't go down until midnight, and the temperatures were a cool 60 degrees. On one of these evenings, me and my cousin were on the ATVs, and we were riding around the property. It was around 10 p.m. at this point, and the sun looked like it wasn't going down anytime soon. Well, seeing the same thing got pretty boring, so my cousin suggested we go a bit further into the wilderness. That way, he could show me to some of the cool spots he's been to. Apparently, there's this neat waterfall about half an hour away from us, with another lake and even a river. It sounded pretty fun, so after telling my uncle about it, me and my cousin spent the next half hour going into the woods. It was cool because these trails were pretty much made for the ATVs, and going down these dirt roads were an easy task. Thank goodness for that, because up ahead of us, we were able to see something large in the road. It was still a fair distance away from us, but we were able to see something. We weren't sure what it was until we got closer, but there, standing in the middle of the road, was a bear eating some berries on the side of the trail. You bet we turned those ATVs right around, but here is the thing. I don't think our new friend was happy with us interrupting his meal, because now he starts running after us. I sure didn't know it then, but apparently bears can run pretty fast. I guess you learn something new every day. Thankfully, as I mentioned, the trail was pretty much made for these vehicles, and we were able to get away after it seemed to lose interest. You can laugh about it now, but if you were in my shoes there, you would probably have preferred to stay home instead. Cool, looks like you made it to the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I won't lie, it truly means a lot to me that you take the time to watch and listen to the videos. I can't be any more thankful. Remember, now is the part where you let me know which story was your favorite. It's always fun to hear from all of you. Speaking of hearing from all of you, I want to start this thing at the end of the videos where I would like to hear from you. So today's question for all of you is, what's your favorite food? I know it's a random question, but it's a great way to get to know all of you. I won't lie, I love enchiladas, especially the ones my mom makes when we have parties. They're so good. So yes, today's question's about food. But with that, I need to go make something to eat because, well, I'm sort of hungry. And besides, I need to work on the next video. But until then, everyone, have yourself a great night or evening or whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you next time. Take care.